Hi, my name's Daniel Flo. I look after digital identity solutions here at LSEG, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to the next episode of The Short Story. So recently I attended an identity conference where I found that, a little bit to my surprise, most of the attendees that were focusing on identity were really focusing on IAM, or Identity and Access Management. And I had several conversations with providers of IAM solutions and customers, and it took me a little while, maybe even a little bit to my embarrassment, to really come to understand that when I said digital identity and they said digital identity, we were talking about very different things. So when I say digital identity, I mean a proofed and verified real world identity that's associated with a real living individual. And what I came to understand with most of the IAM providers was that when they said digital identity, they meant a set of credentials. Now, those credentials could range from something that's user-asserted to something that is verified and authenticated by a third party. But at core, when they said digital identity, I came to understand that they really meant a set of consistent digital credentials. So you may be thinking, who cares? No one but a very small group of identity nerds would actually care about the difference in the use of the word digital identity. But I assure you, it is meaningful for all of us in real world applications, because what it ultimately impacts, where it impacts all of us, is when an employee that utilizes an IAM system loses access to their credentials. How do you reset those credentials and ensure that at any point of reauthentication of the employee that you're actually interacting with the person that you actually intend to interact with? So most digital identities within an organization are at some level HR-asserted identities. So an employee is onboarded, someone in HR conducts a background check, they conduct some level of identity verification where they look at a passport or a national ID, they confirm that the employee is who they claim to be and that they have the right to work in the jurisdiction where they're seeking employment. And then following that, all that information usually is locked away in an employee's HR file. It's deemed really highly confidential and protected information, and it's never accessed again outside of HR. So what happens is HR opens a ticket with IT, and they tell IT, we've onboarded such and such person, they have this and that role, and you should provide them access to this list of systems, which usually works fine. But the concern there is that HR could open a ticket with IT and say that I am Winnie the Pooh. And as long as I show up with the same device and use the same set of digital credentials every time I access an internal system, IT's perfectly happy to think of me as Winnie the Pooh and allow me to assert myself as Winnie the Pooh. And there's really no breakdown in that unless one night Rabbit and I stay up late and I accidentally drop my device in the honey jar. And my device is destroyed, and my authenticator, my passcodes, all of my credentials were on that device. And I have no means of accessing those internal systems that I need to do my job. So in most cases, I would then call an after-hours IT help desk, and I'd say, hey, this is Winnie the Pooh. I've dropped my phone in the honey jar, and I need your help to reissue a set of credentials and work with my new phone that the carrier's provided. And in most cases, that after-hours IT help desk is going to use one of two things or a combination of both. They're going to use some level of knowledge-based authentication question, or KBAs. They're going to ask me, my address and my birth date and what date I was hired. And they're going to, in most cases, send a one-time passcode via text message to my new phone to verify that that I have access to that phone number. So in most cases, I would call in, I would tell them I was Winnie the Pooh, they'd ask me a few questions, they'd send me a one-time passcode, and then I would be free to reinstall Authenticator or whatever type of tool on my mobile device. I would be reissued credentials, and I would have access to all of those critical systems that I need to do my job. And this typically goes off without an issue, unless maybe I'm not actually Winnie the Pooh. Maybe I am a fraudster or a scammer or someone else with bad intent who has identified an employee as someone who has systems access that I desire. And unfortunately, both KBAs and SMS OTP are both means of verification that are very weak and easy to exploit. So most of the information contained in KBAs can be obtained through publicly available information, and SMS OTP is incredibly vulnerable to exploit through means like SIM swaps or SS7 attacks. So in that instant, or in an instance like that, I could be a bad actor and call into that same help desk. I've used a SIM swap or an SS7 exploit to divert text messages intended for my victim's phone to my own. I've got a bit of publicly available information about that individual, and I'm ready to answer the KBAs, to get the SMS OTP, and have that very helpful person in the IT help desk issue me credentials that give me great systems access directly to my phone. And until that employee comes back online and discovers that their credentials are no longer working, no one's the wiser that I have essentially unfettered access to highly confidential internal systems. So what can we do about that? Well, the answer comes back to the I in IAM. If IT had a high assurance basis for verifying the identity of the employee at onboarding, they would know that I'm really not Winnie the Pooh, I'm Daniel Flo. And you would have, our IT would have a highly confident basis for knowing and re-authenticating my identity at any point along the employee lifecycle. And if I lose my device, they use that same means of identity verification to confirm that I am who I claim to be and that there's no fraud or impersonation happening. You don't open yourself up to risk of SS7 or SIM swap exploit. You're not making yourself vulnerable to KBA defeats. And the identity of that employee is something that you have a strong basis for knowing, that you have a strong basis for re-authenticating, and that you can confidently know at any point in that employee's life cycle that you can always re-authenticate and confirm that the individual is who they claim to be. So anytime that we talk about identity, I think it's really important for all of us to understand what it actually means to have a high assurance level identity verification and start employing those in all kinds of situations, especially including those where IAM is protecting potentially sensitive or confidential information. So thank you for joining us for this latest episode of The Short Story. Again, I'm Daniel Flo. It's been a pleasure having you. Please reach out to us with any questions or anything else that you would like to chat with us about. We're kind of identity nerds over here, and we love to talk about things like this. So thank you again for joining us, and have a great day.